I'm going to use a program called Visual Studio Code. So that's Visual Studio Code, which you can download for free from the web. It's a Python IDE, so you can use this program to create your programs. In this case, we have created a new file and we saved it as example.py. Okay, so once you have this program installed, let's continue with the course. And so in Python we can handle data. So in the most simple case, we output text to the screen, right click and run Python file in terminal, and you'll see the output text. You can also get text from the terminal. So let's make it enter your name, and then let's output that. So this line will get the input from the terminal, and if this doesn't work, you're using an old Python version. So in that case it would be raw input, but in the modern versions of Python you'll have to type input. So if you'd run this program, it will ask you to enter, to show this data, and if you enter your name, it will store that in the variable name and output it. Now variables can be text data, and so you could have some variable, let's name it welcome, and you can output that text variable, which is called string variable. So clear here and run, and you'll see the output. So this variable is shown on the screen. Now variables can also be numeric, so you could have a variable x is 5 and output that number. You'll see 5 because we output x. And of course you can do the same arithmetics here. So you can do jokes like this, 5 times 8, or you can have several variables, and you can have a variable that uses other variables. So if you output this, see the same, but in this case it uses x and y that we defined here. Now Python can also work with sequences. So you can have, this is just how you define a sequence, and then there can be more than one item. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or any kind of sequence can be here. And so on. And you could simply output that sequence in this way, right? That would show the whole sequence right here. So that's as we define the variable li. Now variables can be added to a sequence. So using the append method you can add a variable, run it, you see it gets longer. We added one item to the end, and if you do it again, another item will be added at the end. So you can also remove items. So you can do that using the pop method. So now it's one item shorter than the original one. So let me just print the variable, and then what happens after you remove one method, one item. So this will remove from the end. So by executing this several times, it would just remove more. Now to access elements, we can use the same brackets. So this would access the first element, which is 1. So 0 points to the first element of the list, and 1 would point to the second element, which also happens to be 1. So 2 would point to the third element. So a bit counterintuitive, because it starts counting from 0. So if you have some other numbers here, 0 would print 5 because it's the first element. And if you want the second element, you would put 1. So lists start at 0 in Python. Now you can also do -1, which would go from the back. So if you'd run this, you'll see it's 25, which is the last element, because we added a minus here. So that would go from the back. Now if the item, the index, is greater than the numbers, so let's say we want a 10th item, which doesn't exist because we only have 5, it will throw an error. List out of range, because there are only 5 items, so there can't request the 10th item. Now you can also get a sequence. So if you say from the 0th item to the 3rd item, let me just clear this, you'd get 5 and 10, first 2 items. So from 0 to the 4th item, you get the first 4 items. Now you can also start from the 3rd item, so that will get 15 and 20. So this is just a way to get part of the list. Now if you remove the first number, it will assume you mean 0, so that would give you the 0 to the 4th item. And if you remove all of them and simply write a colon, you'd get the whole thing, because if nothing is written, it assumes begin and end. Now you can also remove specific items. So let's say remove the 3rd item, and you'll see the 3rd item is gone. We can also insert and enter the position it should insert. So let's put it at the 0th position, and we add the number 500. You run it and you'll see 500 is added at the 1st position. If you want it somewhere in the middle, let's say there, you can just change the index and it will be added at another position. Now you can also have tuples. So a tuple is like a list, but it's immutable. So we can have some items here and print first element. So it's quite similar, and the other tricks works as well. So could have this, and you'll see shows those items. Now you can also swap variables in Python. So let's say you have x is 3 and y is 5 and you want to swap them around. You can simply do that with this line, one line of code, and then output. So now the variables are swapped because x contains 5 and y contains 3. Now, and finally there are dictionaries, so which are one-to-one mappings. So you can define a dictionary like this, and you can create a certain mapping. So 1 is equal to 1, 2 is equal to 2, and then you can use it as a dictionary. Let me just clear this. So that would print 1 because 1 is mapped to 1, and 2, will be mapped to 2. Now to show the elements and or the keys, can use this method keys, so that will show you the keys, and values would simply give you the values, so 1 and 2. And you can also use items to get the pairs, so that will show you the